Hello and welcome to the Maxi-Geek show. This is episode number 6 for Friday, the 18th of February. You may notice that I have a new headset on. That is because as of yesterday, Maxi-Geek is now powered by Rig Gaming. So I'm gonna brag here because I have been using Rig headsets for 8 years, 9 years now, maybe. And until Rig sent me this very lovely HS 800, well 800 HS, I was using the 700 HS, and I've been using that every day since mid 2019. So coming up on 3 years, that was my daily headset. So Rig is the headset I recommend to everyone. They are light, they are comfortable, they have great audio for both speakers and the microphone. So you will be able to get significant use out of anything Rig related. And something that very few companies do is they actually offer headsets down in like the $50 range. And they're not like just, same style look, but worse materials. They are super comfortable as well. So yeah, if you're looking for the best gaming headset brand on the market, my preference, my vote is for Rig. But yeah, you'll also notice down here in the corner, it says powered by Rig because we are powered by Rig. We're going to get stuck into the news. Thankfully, there's nothing major, no Nintendo Directs, no Activision buyouts, no Bungie buyouts. But there is some mixed news. We've got some movie news, we've got some hardware news, we've got some sad news, and yeah, so we're going to get into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about No Man's Sky. So No Man's Sky, obviously just last week revealed that they were bringing the game to Switch. So Hello Games is the developer. They're bringing that to Switch sometime later this year. You may have thought, these guys have just announced a new platform. They're going to be quiet for a while they work on that. Not to be the case because, less than a week later, they announced here's the next major update for the game on the other platforms. As you can see here by the title, they're overhauling the Sentinels in the game. Now, the Sentinels, if I scroll down to where one of the pictures are, the Sentinels are the little droids, the little things, these guys that fly around the planets. So if you've actually played No Man's Sky, there's a fair chance you'll have come across these at some point. If they are, plentiful on a planet, you might spot them more often. Obviously, if they are aggressive, they can be a real pain because they generally will leave you alone. But if you start hurting the wildlife on the planet, or you start tearing up the planet mining for things, they will start to take notice and hunt you down. What makes this update pretty big is that the Sentinels themselves have been updated. So there's now a drone that will repair themselves, repair other Sentinels. There's a new Heavy Sentinel, and the Heavy Sentinel will, let me put this trailer on when we talk. The Heavy Sentinel will have things like a flamethrower. So there's a lot of big changes to the Sentinels, and obviously changes like that require changes in combat. So it's now no longer just you having a basic pew pew. You can actually now start stacking elemental abilities onto the various weapons. You can now start carrying more weapons, which is a big thing. As you saw, there's a thing called the Drone Companion, that there's an entire quest line that if you complete it, you can actually unlock your own drone companion to come with you as you explore, the 18 quintillion planets that No Man's Sky has to offer. As you can see here, some of the new changes to combat. Obviously, No Man's Sky, you can actually have a mech now. You can also have critters. So you can actually have, not really a farm, but you can have a bunch of animals with you. You can ride them and all that. One of the updates in this patch is that you can actually now have them carry things for you. So if you've got a larger critter, you can actually have them be basically a pack mule for your expedition. So if you don't want to take a rover or your ship around the planet, you can have the creature come with you. So yeah, a lot of big changes for No Man's Sky in the Sentinel update. This is the 17th major update the game's had since it first released back in 2016, and it's not the last one. They got plenty more to come. So it is a big update. As I said, there's a lot more in it than I've talked about here. One of the things that they've done, especially for PC players, is that they've worked with AMD to add support in for the sort of super sampling that the AMD offer as well. I can't think of the name of that off the top of my head, but basically the game will look and run a bit better if you have an AMD card capable of running that tech. It's a very cool thing, but it's one of those, this is very cool. I personally don't have AMD, I have NVIDIA, so I can't make use of it, but even on NVIDIA, it supports some of their advanced features as well. So, and that sort of ties in very well with the next topic, and that is Intel. Specifically ARC. So ARC, ARC, is the Intel's integrated graphics cards that they're building for themselves. So there's a fair chance that if you've built a desktop computer in recent years, or you've bought a laptop in recent years, you'll have what they call Intel Iris graphics, which is basically just sort of a very simplistic video card built into the CPU to display things on a screen. So for a laptop, that's fine. There's no dedicated graphics chip, so you can't run many games. Same with a desktop computer. If you don't have a graphics card, you can still see Windows, but if you try and put on, say, Minecraft, it won't work so well. Intel announced last year that they are going to be bringing their own dedicated graphics chips to market, and they did say early 2022, and now we know when. So the first laptops will start arriving in just a few weeks. So sort of by mid-March, they'll start hitting, stores around the world. We don't know the specifics of which ones are doing it yet, but they are, Intel said they are coming. And then in Q2 of the year, so April 1st through June 30, there will be the dedicated GPUs, the dedicated the desktop cards that will be joining the market. So at the moment, if you want a video card, you go AMD or NVIDIA. Come, say, June 30, when Intel's stuff is in the market, you'll have a choice of three. We do know that there are some additional features. This is what Intel are saying. They call it XSS. So it's EXSS, or EX super sampling is what it breaks down to. And you can see here, this is what an image would look like without any sort of super sampling, just a generic sort of image. But if we turn it so that we see the same image but with super sampling enabled, you are going to be seeing a lot more detail, specular highlights, additional, reflective surfaces, things behaving a little more than what they should. There is also a video here that I'll put this on. Now this video, it does have audio, but it's just one of those sort of narration audios. But what it does with this upscaling is, you can see here, this is Riftbreaker, which launched back in January. This is the game running with the super sampling, upscaling the image to 4K. And now you can see a side by side, seeing it 1080p on the left and 4K via super sampling on the right. And as you can see, as they're pushing in, you can see the game's still retaining the detail. And, as we've pushed in very far on the left, how blurry everything is, but on the right, it's the same. So yeah, it's very interesting that they are bringing this out quite soon. As I said, we don't have any details about anyone who actually is, stocking them.
Adds detail.
Sorry. So we do know that, AMD and Intel make the chips, but then, Gigabyte, Asus, and a bunch of other manufacturers will produce the cards. We don't know if that's the case with Intel or if they're going to be making the cards themselves. But again, we have to sort of wait and see. This information was given out as part of the quarterly briefing for investors in the stock market. So it is interesting to see that they are doing things. They've confirmed these things, but again, we're still waiting on some details to come through. Something a little different is now we're going to talk about shoes. Specifically, as being reported here by OzGamers, these are custom shoes that have been designed by Alan McKenzie, who's a Gamma Lorori and Wiradjuri man. So he's a man who has ties back to the Aboriginal people of Australia. And the reason why these shoes are special is that they are embracing traditional design. So as you can see, there's a lot of, I don't know what they would call it. I know the dots, would be pointillism. But these are, a traditional, an updated take on the traditional Aboriginal design style. And these are actually going to be auctioned off. So it's a single pair of shoes. They don't exist anywhere else. And the entire purpose of them is to raise money for charity. These are obviously themed. They're basketball shoes. They're themed for, 2K22, the NBA game that came out last year. So it is interesting that, more companies, more local businesses are starting to recognize the traditional landowners and their descendants, and bringing their unique and inspired takes on their culture to not necessarily, things you wouldn't expect to see them in, but, just embracing that crossover of, this is an artist who creates incredible pieces of work, pieces of art. How can we make that, tie in with NBA? In parallel to this, during the week, Tamara Morrison, who obviously has just finished, playing Boba Fett on Disney Plus, was presented with a hand carved replica of Boba Fett's helmet in New Zealand by one of the traditional Maori artists over there. So it is great to see that a lot more people are doing things like this. And again, the color scheme for me is a bit much. Those shoes are very, very bright. But if I did own them, I probably wouldn't wear them. I think they're a bit too special for wearing, but they definitely would be a talking piece. Getting into some more, impressive, colorful news, we're going to talk about Mario Kart 8 and their upcoming booster course pack. So obviously last week during the Nintendo Direct, Nintendo confirmed there would be an additional 48 courses coming to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch. If you don't have Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, the course pack would set you back roughly $37. If you do have it, so you do have the Nintendo 64 and Mega Drive apps on your Switch, as part of that membership, you get this booster pack included. Something that didn't happen previously on Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U was that if somebody owned the DLC and they wanted to race on them, but somebody else didn't, if you didn't have the DLC, you couldn't race on those tracks. A change for this one is that as long as somebody in the online group has the DLC, everyone can race on those courses. So if you're, gathered around, everyone's playing on their own Switch, if one person hosts the match and they own the booster course, with the first 8 tracks coming in March, then everyone in that party will be able to play on those, race on those tracks. But once you're, if you're no longer in that session, you don't have access to those tracks. It's not an unlock for you permanently. It's while you're in this group, while you're in this session, you can still play and enjoy those tracks. So, as I said, it's a big change up from what they were doing with the Wii U release of the game, where it was you had to own it to play on them, which makes more sense in the grand scheme of things. But it is interesting that they're doing it the other way here, where they're saying, no, as long as somebody in there owns it, everyone can play it. Which I think is probably, it's a more inclusive way of doing it. And again, it being a part of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which is a mouthful of a title, it does mean that, many more people will probably get this out of the gate rather than on its own. So yeah, it is very, very cool that they're doing that. I can't wait to see, what some of the other tracks they're bringing back are. Now, of course, these are all remastered from the other titles in the series. So Super Mario Kart, Super Circuit, 64, Double Dash, Wii, and DS, and Tour. So seven, console titles, and then 1 mobile game. So back into the world of 2K news, we're talking about BioShock. Specifically, that Netflix has picked up the rights to produce a Bioshock movie. Now, this is obviously not the first time that we've heard Bioshock movie news. It started back in 2008 when director Gore Verbinski, who was the man who directed the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies for Disney, when he signed on with Universal Pictures to create, a movie based around Bioshock. Over the years, there have been countless screenwriters attached, directors attached, producing companies attached. The big thing with this one is that Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of 2K, who own the Bioshock license, they are the ones producing it as well, alongside Vertigo Entertainment. Vertigo Entertainment, at the moment, they're sort of the more recent success films are the Lego Movie series, so Lego Movie, Lego Movie 2, and the Batman one, and the Unikitty TV show. But the first movies they actually produced were The Ring, The Grudge, The Eye, sort of Western adaptations of classic, Japanese and South American horror movies. What is interesting is that they've produced a lot of horror movies over the years. So even though, they started working with Warner Brothers and other companies to make, the Lego Movie, they've still done a lot of horror. We don't know any other details outside of the companies involved in the making it and the fact that it's going to go to Netflix. Given that they've just announced this, it's highly unlikely they've got a writer on board, probably no director, which means at the earliest we'd probably be looking at Christmas 2023, depending on how big a movie it's going to be. But I'd say we're probably looking at least 2 years, if not a little bit longer. Depends on how long it takes them to get a script together that tells a good story. The key art that Netflix provided was the one that you're seeing on screen here, featuring the Big Daddy and the Little Sister. And, of course, it did feature the original Bioshock 1 logo. So whether or not that means we're going to be seeing Rapture on screen, or if it's going to be something completely original, we don't know. But I would hedge my bet that we're going to see Rapture in some form in this movie, if not the central location for it. Personally, I'm very excited to see, what they do with, Bioshock on the screen. Obviously, the big appeal for Bioshock 1, and, apologies if you've never played this game, you're going to get a bit of a spoiler here, is that your big draw for it was that you're constantly getting asked to go and do things. And, as a gamer, you're like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Let's go save this guy. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And the big twist was that, it wasn't actually a choice that you had. You had to do this because of brainwashing. So it is interesting, the concept of that, seeing how that plays out on screen, if they do adapt to that. Maybe this is going to be a prequel to the fall of Rapture. Maybe this is going to be Andrew Ryan's, vision of what Rapture could be and how he went about building it. We really don't know. So it obviously is, it's going to be a couple of years at least until we see it. So speculation is probably going to die off pretty quickly for the moment because we don't know anything else. But I, for one, can't wait to see it on screen. Speaking of movies, in May, in one of the M's, we are going to get a new Chip and Dale movie. It is coming out in May, and it is just called Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And as you may see straight away from the image on screen, we have Chip and Dale. Chip looks very much like he did in the TV series. Dale, unfortunately, looks very much like the Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. So they're very, very different visual styles. Let me just pop this teaser trailer on. So what is interesting about this is that it is sort of played off initially as a bit of a mockumentary, what happened in the past. And then, when their TV show ended, what did these actors get up to? So it's very interesting that they went this route for it. There you go, Roger Rabbit, one of my all-time favorite movies. I will say though, I'm not a fan of the fact that they recast the actors. I mean, I get it from a commercial sense. You want a name attached to it. Unfortunately, they've done weird things. So John Mulaney is voicing Chip, and Andy Samberg, who many people will know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Saturday Night Live and The Lonely Island, is voicing Dale. The problem is the Chipmunks, obviously, as Chipmunks, had a very high-pitched voice, and they have for years. but this one they just speak normal, which makes very little sense to me. I do appreciate the whole live action and blended animation styles, especially because it sort of harkens back to Roger Rabbit, and so seeing him in the teaser was very fun. I also don't like the rest of the cast, so it's all just Hollywood names. You'll see the names here on the screen in a moment as well. Yeah, this is very self-referential, and it's not that fun. But so that's Seth Rogen, and you can see that it's him, right? They're using that whole Beowulf, Polar Express, visual style that Robert Zemeckis came up with. Ironically, who's the same director of Who Framed Roger Rabbit? So Will Arnett, Eric Bana, Keegan-Michael Key, nothing against those actors. They are very talented actors, but they're not who I would cast in it. So the only two actors that are back from the original show are Corey Burton, who voiced Chip initially, and voiced I can't think of the fly's name, but he was that, and then Tress MacNeille, who voiced Dale. So they're back in this one, but there's no word on who they're playing or what's going to happen. I'll be honest, I'll watch it because it's included in my Disney Plus. But it really needs to do something better than just be, remember these guys? They had a TV show. Turns out there was actually, a villain in the world, and these guys think they're the only ones that can save them. It's a storyline we've seen before, and I don't think it's going to be that interesting to see it again. But, it could be interesting. We just have to wait and see. While we're on the run of movie news, let's talk Doctor Strange. So we got a teaser trailer at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. No Way Home. Last year for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And now we have a full trailer. In order to avoid any potential spoilers, because I know some people are very cautious of that, I will not display the trailer in here. But we do have a new poster. And the new poster, obviously, window breaking, a lot of glass. So there's obviously a lot of things that people can read into these sort of, things. And obviously Marvel do put, 1,000 different things in where they can to sort of, highlight and showcase things. It has the potential to be very, very interesting. And obviously there is some reveal in the trailer that has the potential to be groundbreaking. But at the same time, it won't be, because it's Marvel, and they've already done that with us before, with WandaVision, when they brought in, I can't think of his name, the actor who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, and then they did it, they sort of pivoted away from that as a bit of a joke. I don't see them doing that exact same thing twice, but I don't think it's what everyone expects it to be. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting how that plays out. Obviously, that movie is out on May 6th here in Australia. Sorry, May 5th here in Australia. May 6th is the US release. So, as always, we get it just slightly ahead of them, which always makes me chuckle, because we used to get everything late. But because we get our movies here on a Thursday, and in the US they get them on the Friday, that's literally the only reason why there is that difference. Speaking of different, the Commonwealth Games. Specifically, later this year, the Commonwealth Games will actually host esports. So Birmingham is the host of the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Initially, it was supposed to be set in South Africa, but there were issues with the construction timeline. They were well behind where they needed to be. So the Commonwealth Games pivoted and said to Birmingham, hey, do you want to host this stuff? So they said yes. One of the big things is that they're going to be essentially trialing esports in these first Commonwealth Games, with the 2026 potentially being the first time we see them as part of the permanent lineup. Now, we saw something like this with the Olympics last year in Tokyo. We saw skateboarding for the first time, and that is now a permanent sport. So when the 2024 Olympics roll around in Los Angeles, there will be, in Paris, there will be skateboarding as a permanent sport. Los Angeles is the next city after that in 2028, and then Brisbane in 2032. So there's not much about this yet. We don't know what games they're going to be doing. You know, they could be the big ones, the standard. You know, maybe League of Legends, maybe Fortnite will probably make an appearance at some point. Who knows? We honestly don't know because there's just so much information that they've yet to confirm. So we do know that they're not doing this as a cash grab, so to speak. You know, to just throw their name in the spotlight to say, hey, pay attention to us again. They're looking to use this as sort of a way to get you know, the younger demographic invested in the Commonwealth Games as a whole, and maybe they come in for a Dota tournament or a Counter-Strike match, and they stick around for some synchronized swimming or some athletics. You know, who knows? It is interesting that they're going to do that. Whether or not that becomes a big thing down the line, we don't know. It's going to be one of those very difficult things to sort of, you know, not gauge, but there is a reason why esports is very underrepresented on TV at this point, because it's one of the things. You're either very heavily invested in the game and you understand those mechanics, or you're just seeing a bunch of people playing stuff in front of a screen and it doesn't really make sense. I would like to think it sticks around permanently, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of things that's sticking around, Cyberpunk 2077 finally got its next generation patch. So patch 1.5, so we've had a few patches between release and now, but patch 1.5 is the big one because this is the one that actually enhances the game for both Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 players. One of the big things is that there is some additional functionality that is not possible, according to CD Projekt Red, on the original consoles. Obviously, again, the big thing here is that there is next generation versions. So it's not you running the game in backwards compatibility on the new hardware, which was obviously the sort of the best way to play the game initially at launch. But it is, you know, you enjoying, you know, a fully optimized, you know, better visuals, better effects, you know, bigger draw distances, all that sort of stuff on the platform. One of the big things is they did put together this nice little sort of sheet to sort of show what the big differences are. So one of the things exclusive to the next generations is ray tracing. Not Xbox Series S, because that doesn't do it. But, you know, the DualSense 5 is supported on PlayStation 5 now. So if you've been playing the game on PlayStation 5, it will now actually support the DualSense controller. The big thing that they added, though, is what they're calling improved crowd reactions. Now, for this, they're just saying that the crowds are going to react more naturally to events going on around them. So instead of, you know, you running through the street and just hip and shouldering everyone as you go past, you know, they might actually try and get out of the way first, you know, before you hit them. You know, if cars spin out of control on the streets or crash, people may actually just stand back and go, oh, you know, what's going on? So they've said that's not possible on the previous generations. Not sure why. Maybe it's a limitation with the original base Xbox One and PlayStation 4 consoles. But it is interesting that they're doing that. Now, they did actually release 2 dedicated videos for gameplay on the next generation, you know, from the next generation platforms. Whether or not you want to invest in that, who knows? In the patch notes, you know, they did add things like you can now rent apartments in different locations of the city. So you're not just, you know, stuck with the places you unlock as you play through the story. You can actually just go out and rent a new place. One of the big things is there's new customization appearance options. So you can actually customize your V to look even more special than they were previously. There are new weapons, there are new cars. There's now the ability, you know, to have new poses for photos. And during the times when you get to play in the flashbacks as Johnny, you can actually get a bunch of poses for him as well. You can't have him posing in photos when you're not in a flashback. So, you know, you have to sort of take the good with the bad there. They've also improved combat. So now combat, especially the melee combat, is going to be more demanding of you rather than just sort of wailing on an enemy, which was my sort of go-to move when I had to use melee attacks. they've also, fixed up the driving mechanics, so you can now do burnouts, proper burnouts that can actually let you spin around, maybe, build up a big cloud of smoke, then take off. They fixed up the braking, they fixed up the whole driving system has been overhauled. Whether or not that means that driving is smoother overall, we don't know, but it should be better. Obviously, this is also included on the previous generation, so PlayStation 4 and Xbox One get them as well, and PC. They've also balanced new jobs and things like that. They fixed up some of the fixer sort of requirements and things like that as well. So they've done a lot more to bring it further into making it sort of honestly what it should have been at launch, but it's there now, and that means that we get a chance to experience all this again. If you're like me, I've been playing through a lot of that game. Sort of when I get a lull in reviews, I'll jump into that or No Man's Sky, and I play through some of the missions just to sort of clear them out, because they're not that demanding. They're pretty straightforward things, and sometimes they'll throw me for a loop, and it's it sort of breaks the monotony of playing more Battlefield. So that's sort of been what I've been doing with that since it came out. I have most of them done as well, so this will give me another reason to jump back in and see what has happened in Night City. Speaking of, this is actually not a great segue. I was going to say speaking of Night City, but speaking of the future, Lego. Specifically, this is the first official PlayStation branded Lego set themed to Horizon Forbidden West. This is what they call the tall neck. So over the years we've had Overwatch sets. Now we've had obviously Super Mario. We've got Sonic. There's been a number of generic Lego rip-off block sets that have done it. We've had a Halo set before. We've had WWE sets before. But we're getting an official Horizon Forbidden West PlayStation, Lego set. What is interesting, it does come with a little mini Aloy Lego figurine and the little the Raptor one. I can't think of what the name of that one is. It's been a while since I played the game. It is quite big, so it's 34 centimeters tall. So it is very, very tall, and it is quite wide and everything. Interestingly too, it is coming in May, so it's not a very long wait for this one. Lego generally do that though. They don't announce things and then hold off for 6 months until they release. We sort of get them maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks beforehand. So this one we got a little bit earlier. I think they just wanted to get the news out there in sort of the Horizon Forbidden West launch week, which obviously is this week. We have the game out today, and if you are in Sydney at the Botanical Gardens, they do have a very special, claw jumper, life-size version of it built. So if you are in and around Sydney there, you can pop in and have a look at that's at the Botanical Gardens near the Opera House. As for that Lego set, I do like it. The thing that I thought was interesting is the box is very reminiscent of the Architecture series that Lego have been producing for a number of years. So the Architecture series, they've done the Sydney Opera House, the Empire State Building out in New York, the Eiffel Tower, Buckingham Palace, the White House. So they take, buildings that are iconic for various reasons, and they make Lego versions of them. So it's not just, Joe's Corner Shop that gets the Lego architect treatment, though if you know someone who's a very good builder, you can make that. But these are, designed by the Lego experts, and then, they're packaged up and they've got that very simple black box image on it. And it says Lego Architecture on it. This one obviously doesn't even say PlayStation on the box. It just says Horizon. It may say PlayStation in the copyright or something, but it's not branded PlayStation. So this doesn't mean we're going to start getting, the Uncharted series, Ghost of Tsushima, things like that in Lego form. It may. This may be the first one. But I honestly think they picked a really good one to start with, because the tall neck is probably one of the more iconic creatures from Horizon Zero Dawn, because it did act sort of as a mobile tower, gave you a sense of the world around you when you're on top of them, and it wasn't an easy climb. They were quite a bit challenging to get up as well. So it does make me want that one. and I think I will be getting it because I'm a sucker for good Lego. More water, excuse me. All right, good news for those Legend of Zelda fans. Specifically, we are looking at next week. So on February 25, which is next Friday, Nintendo of America have said that Majora's Mask will be available for Nintendo Switch Online members. This is being reported by Vooks. What is interesting, though, is that Nintendo of Australia have not yet confirmed when it'll be coming here. Generally speaking, if we get a game revealed for the Switch Online apps for the US, we get it the day after. So if they get it at 9 o'clock Tuesday, 9 o'clock Friday morning, for example, we'll get it at like 3 in the morning, Saturday morning. We haven't had that update yet. We should have that in a few hours from Nintendo of Europe. They'll confirm what day it is for them. If they say it is the 26th, then we'll get it the 26th. If they say the 25th, we'll get it on the 25th. Obviously, this is the N64 version. This is not the 3DS remake or enhanced port that they did a number of years ago. So a lot of the changes and improvements they made will not be included. And I have heard that some people are not happy with some of those changes. So this is the original Nintendo 64 release. What is interesting, though, is that when they announced that this game was coming, it was announced the same day that Banjo and Kazooie did release on the Nintendo 64 app. So there's a fair chance that when this one is released, we'll find out what the next game is. That is not guaranteed to happen. They've just said, in past, they've done it that way. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they do bring it out, announce the next game next Friday. But if they don't, we still have Majora's Mask to play. Now, something that obviously, for the last few weeks, a lot of people have been speculating about Activision's future in the game industry, purely because of the buyout by Microsoft. During the week, there was a gentleman from Microsoft. I can't think of what his name is, but he was on a very business-focused show for CNN, and he did confirm that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation in the future going forward. Basically, the Call of Duty series is going to become Minecraft. Not everything's going to become blocky, but if Minecraft, if you recall, was already on most platforms before Microsoft bought out Mojang. The only platform it wasn't on back then was the Wii U. There was no Nintendo version, but even post the purchase, Minecraft came to the Wii U and then the 3DS and even now Switch. So the commitment is that Call of Duty is going to remain on the same platform, as they're on at the moment. But the gentleman from Microsoft even went so far as to confirm that they do want to put Call of Duty on Nintendo. It's been a number of years since we've had a Call of Duty title released on a Nintendo platform. The last one we had was Call of Duty Ghosts, which was Infinity Ward, before they sort of rebooted themselves. They're also doing this year's installment. It's a sequel to their Modern Warfare reboot as well. So it is interesting that they're going to do that. As you can see, the full statement says, to be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles on PlayStation through the term of any existing agreement with Activision. And we've committed to Sony that we will make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business. So what this means essentially is that going forward, you should be able to play Call of Duty on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo, regardless of which one you have. Don't expect them to keep supporting maybe the PlayStation 4 anytime soon. That may drop out pretty quick. But PlayStation 5 for the next few years, for sure, you're going to see that. Will it all come to Switch? Who knows? It's one of those things where it is very interesting for them if they do. But at the same time, it's one of those, should it be on Switch? We've had a lot of games come across to Switch. The Doom series is probably the best example, where they are fantastic ports, and Panic Button really did an incredible job porting both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal to the platform. But at the same time, it's like, did they really need to be there? Was there a benefit to having them there apart from saying, hey, look, we got these running on the Switch? Some people really love them. I personally enjoyed playing them on Switch. I thought they were great there, but I also have played them on PC. And, obviously PC for Doom is where you should be playing it. It's like, it's like Half-Life. If Half-Life comes to any of the consoles, it's like great that it's there, but technically it's a PC series. That's where you should play that series. I don't know if putting Call of Duty on Nintendo is the best thing for Activision Blizzard and Microsoft in the future. I'd love to see them doing more Spyros, more Crash Bandicoots, and more original, smaller, titles, rather than just saying, "Hey, we're going to keep making Call of Duty till the sun burns out." That's what I hope, but we'll have to wait and see if that's the case. Something else that we can talk about looking to the future is that Sonic the Hedgehog is getting a third movie and a TV show. So before the second movie is even out, that is launching March 31st, so we're about 6 weeks away from that one, we will have a third Sonic movie sometime in the future. And then eventually on Paramount Plus, we're getting an all-new Sonic TV show. Now, the big thing with the movie is we don't know anything about it because we don't know how the second one ends. The only thing we know about the TV show is that it is going to be a live-action show. So this is not going to be an animated show, which Sonic has been in countless animated shows over the years. This is going to be a live-action TV series. It's one of those ones where it's interesting that they've confirmed all this prior to any information. They've just said, we are doing it. At the same time, though, it has hyped up, the expectations immensely, because the Sonic movie, Sonic the Hedgehog, the first movie, did phenomenally well. And it was really the last big movie before the pandemic. So it is very, very interesting that it was, even with how rough the ride to release was for that movie, and the fact that its run was cut very short because of the pandemic, the fact that it did so well and is so beloved already speaks to how well the creative team understand the source material. And if that same team is working on the TV series as well, it could be very, very, very big news for fans of short form entertainment. Obviously, Paramount Plus did have a big week in the news as well. We also got confirmation that Halo is getting a second season. And again, that hasn't even aired its first season. And we've already got confirmation of a second. That's the equivalent of, Disney saying, hey, we're giving you, Moon Knight season 2. Right? Moon Knight hasn't aired yet. That airs in late March. But, they're back on the ball already with a second season. Whether or not that's going to be the case, we will have to wait and see. But it is interesting that, Sonic appears to be, at very least in the cinema sense, dominating Nintendo. Obviously, we will see Mario hit the big screen for a second time with the Mario movie in late 2021. We don't have an exact date here yet, but it is the 21st of December in the US. I'll be honest, if we're seeing it here, we're either getting it Boxing Day or New Year's Day. They're the 2 days we tend to see big films release, especially if they launch just before Christmas in the US. But yeah, it is interesting that they're sort of dedicating themselves to this, the future of Sonic in this way. We just have to wait and see how it all pans out for them. Oh, a lot of talking. Right. We are now getting into probably one of the bigger news stories of the week and one of the sadder news stories of the week. And that is that Nintendo is pulling the pin on the Wii U and 3DS eShops sometime in March 2023. So that means sometime between now and the end of March next year, this will be your only time to get in and buy games on the Wii U or the 3DS eShops. Obviously, they're not closing down the eShop as a whole because it is available on Switch, just the platforms, just the Wii U and the 3DS versions of those shops. The reason why this is a bit sad, and again, this is being reported out via Voox, is that these shops are really some of the only way to play some incredible legacy titles. Obviously, the Wii U has a massive virtual console. and the 3DS also has one as well. 3DS tends to lean more into the handheld offerings for obvious reasons, but it's also the only platform at the moment you can get Game Boy games. So Pokemon Crystal, Pokemon Yellow, things like that are on the Nintendo 3DS eShop. But there's also older games like, the Donkey Kong Country series, the Donkey Kong Land, series, which was the Game Boy versions of Donkey Kong Country. They're on there. So there's a lot of classic old school Game Boy games that are available through the Nintendo 3DS eShop, and we will be losing access to those. Now, I have some classic Game Boy games still around, and I have my Game Boys, so I can still play those. But if I wanted to play, say, Super Mario Land, which was the first Mario game for Mario platformer on the Game Boy, I don't own that physically, so I'd have to go on my 3DS and buy it. And, in 12 months' time, that won't be possible. The Wii U eShop, it really depends on your point of view. Some people say the 3DS is going to be worse because there's more games. Some people say the Wii U is going to be worse because there's more platforms. I personally am in the Wii U camp because I think it has a better variety of titles. But the Wii U, apart from offering Wii U titles, also does a selection of Wii games, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, DS, and TurboGrafx. So it has a larger range of platforms compared to the 3DS. Last year I played through all the Metroid games, bar Metroid 2 for Game Boy or the 3DS remake, because they weren't available on the Wii U. And my 3DS, where I have both those titles, I don't have it hacked or modified to allow me to stream video from it. So I honestly had no way of playing those games and showing people on a stream. So they just weren't played because nobody wants to just see the top of my head as I'm staring down at a 3DS for 4 hours. But the Wii U has all the others. So it has the original NES. It has the Super Nintendo version of Super Metroid, right? It has, on the Game Boy Advance, it has Zero Mission, which is the remake of the NES version. It has Fusion, which was obviously Metroid 4. It has the 4 Prime games, so Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and Prime 3 Corruption, as well as Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS. Also has Metroid Other M. So up until Dread released, the Wii U had all but one of the titles in the series. Okay, I believe from memory, I think I checked it out, it actually has Pinball as well, Metroid Pinball. So it has all of them. What is very interesting is that re-downloading content will still be possible. So the infrastructure itself is not being turned off. They're just turning off the ability to buy things. So if you do have, games that you own on your Wii U but you don't have downloaded, you don't have to rush out and buy a hard drive to download them and fill it up now, because that will still all be available in the future. But if you want to buy new titles, you'll have to get in and do it soon. One of the very interesting things is that there are some titles that are not unique, I suppose is probably not the right word. So on there, so there are titles like NES Remix. NES Remix did get a 3DS port, which is sort of readily available. It's not cheap, but it's there. But NES Remix and NES Remix 2 did get a disc release in the US. I don't believe we got that here in Australia. If you don't have it on disc or you don't have it digitally, you'll have to get ahead and get that now, because once that's gone, it's gone for good. On the Game Boy Advance, you can get the Fire Emblem and the Sacred Stones. There's also a DS version of Fire Emblem, because the DS is supported through backwards compatibility on the Wii U. So there are a number of platforms that are supported that, have games that are just, honestly, they're just not something that I would suggest you go out and buy a physical copy for, unless it is, your most played game of all time, because some of them, the cost of them is just astronomical. So the Metroid Prime trilogy on the Wii U, which is a Wii collection of the 3 games, is $26 to buy digitally on the Wii U. To buy that on disc, you're looking, minimum $80 if you find a very poorly kept version of it. If you're looking for the best, immaculate collection with the cardboard sleeve and all the bits and pieces, you're probably looking $150. So the price difference alone there makes the Wii U an appealing offer. So the fact that we're losing that isn't just that we're losing these games. They do exist on disc, but we're losing, an affordable way of getting these games. And that's probably what honestly sucks more than anything else, is that it's not that we're losing access to these titles, because again, they do all exist on other systems, most of which have had physical releases. It's that we're losing access to them at an affordable way. I mentioned that some games, have had physical releases because some haven't. So Drill Dozer was made by Game Freak. Game Freak are the creators of Pokemon. That game was released on Game Boy Advance in Japan and North America. That was it. We never got it here in Australia. Europe never got it as well. But that game was ported to the Wii U through the Game Boy Advance Virtual Console, and they actually completely translated it into French, German, Italian, and Spanish, alongside the English translation. So it's not that they just put the game across and said, here you go, enjoy. They actually took the time to translate it. They did the same thing with Earthbound: The Beginnings. That was the original NES game that was never released outside of Japan. On the Wii U, they translated it, they put it up, called it Earthbound: The Beginnings, and we just got that and the original Earthbound on Switch. So they did a lot with that series that we haven't seen them do before, because they haven't had a reason to. It's interesting again that they're doing it this way. I mean, they did give us plenty of notice. We're not losing everything tomorrow, so to speak. But it's what's interesting about all this is that this isn't the first time Nintendo have done it. They did it with the DSi, which was their first online shop. A lot of that content survived on the 3DS. You could get the same games and same little applications. But with the 3DS going, we're losing that as well. So the 3DS is technically losing the 3DS library as well as the DSi library. What is probably even weirder is that in terms of, not platform availability, but in terms of, I'm trying to say it in a nice way. PlayStation announced last year before, that they were discontinuing store support for PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, and I think PSP. And people just turned around and said, no, you keep that stuff going because we own content, right? They were going to get rid of all of it. And PlayStation turned around and said, okay, we've heard you loud and clear, we're not going to get rid of it. And Nintendo have made this decision. As you can see here, there's a grey box that the Vux team have put in there. There was an FAQ that Nintendo did publish on the Nintendo of America site when this news broke. This is the question here. So the question was, once it's no longer possible to purchase software in Nintendo eShop on Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS family of systems, many classic games for past platforms will cease to be available for purchase anyway. Will you make classic games available to own in some other way? If not, then why? Doesn't Nintendo have an obligation to preserve its classic games by continually making them available for purchase? So that is the question as if asked by a consumer. The Nintendo response was, across our Nintendo Switch Online membership plans, over 130 games are currently available, growing libraries for various legacy systems. The games are often enhanced with new features such as online play. We think this is an effective way to make classic content easily available to a broad range of players. Within these libraries, new and long-time players can not only find games that they remember or have heard about, but other fun games they might not have thought to seek out otherwise. We currently have no plans to offer classic content in other ways. Okay. Now, the reason why that last line is very, very important is because not only does it put the final nail in the idea that the Virtual Console may return, is it basically says, we're not going to get any retro Game & Watch platforms. We're not going to get an N64 Mini or anything like that because they have no plans to do so, because they don't need to. I'm personally okay if they don't do an N64 Mini. I mean, from a collector's point of view, that would look amazing on my shelf with my other mini consoles. But at the same time, as long as they keep updating the Nintendo 64 app, I don't think it'd be an issue. The problem that we have is that Nintendo saying, oh, there's over 130 games. It's like, yes, there might be 130 games, but 30-40% of them are things that most people would never play in the first place. And not because they're unknown, it's because the quality of them isn't great. We've had this discussion, I'm on the Footcast every fortnight, and we've had this discussion countless times, is that every time Nintendo release an NES or Super NES update, they'll add 2 or 3 titles to the NES, 1 to the Super NES, and it's maybe one game that people are actually aware of, and the rest of the things, and we look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. And this is the same thing. They're basically saying, hey, we've got games already on this platform. Again, excuse me. Another difference is that the Nintendo Switch Online, you have to pay monthly or yearly to access. And if you're not paying the subscription fee for your monthly or yearly access, you don't get the games, right? And somebody may say, excuse me, somebody may say, oh, that's fine, I only really play those games, I'm not worried about anything else. Like, oh, that's great. But let's say, you lose your job, or, financially you just don't want to renew your Nintendo Switch Online membership for a year. You lose access to that library, right? It's the same thing with Xbox Game Pass, or the PlayStation Plus games, or Xbox Live games with Gold. Once you stop paying for this subscription, you lose access to this content. And I guess it's no different to Netflix, Disney Plus, Stan, or any other streaming platform where you're not paying to own the content, you're paying to watch the content. The difference being is that, if I'm watching something on Disney Plus, if I'm watching the Aladdin live action movie, and I go, oh, that's pretty great, I can go buy that on DVD or Blu-ray, right? I'm not restricted to being, that's the only way I can get this. And Nintendo have done it in the past, Disney have done it in the past where, they used to, put movies out on VHS, years ago, and then say, it's only out for a limited time. It has the unfortunate byproduct of pushing people to think it's I've better go get it today, the date come out, otherwise I never get it again. And 4 years later it's back out on sale again. So it sort of artificially inflated the market to say this is going to be a rare thing. But it also made Disney seem like, they're doing this out of the kindness of their hearts, when it was never that way. It was always because it was money making for them. They could promote a product, to say it's a limited thing. 4 years later, it's limited again because they're only keeping it out for 6 months. Nintendo removing these shops isn't a bad thing, because obviously nobody's buying Wii U consoles. So keeping a shop going for people, maybe 2 people a week that actually buy a game on them, doesn't seem like a solid business sense. But the fact that they're not keeping the shop content available for people to buy on other platforms is the issue. It's not that we're losing access to the shops, it's we're losing access to what the shops are selling, right? It'd be no different if JB Hi-Fi closed all the shops down and you had no way of buying your movies or your games or your pop figures, right? Because if that was the only place you could get these things, that's the problem. The Wii obviously had many more titles and many more platforms than the Wii U did, but the Wii U had ones that didn't, like the DS and the Game Boy. And I do want them to bring these shops out on the Switch. I'd love for them to turn around and say, look, we're closing down the eShop on the Switch, but we're bringing the TurboGrafx games to the Switch eShop, right? A lot of those games have been ported over by Hamster. There's countless arcade ports by that company on the Switch, but it's a shame that they're doing it this way, and they're basically saying, look, it's too bad, so sad. If you don't have access to them now, you're not going to get access to them in the future. Obviously, at the moment, it's more challenging to buy games on the eShop for the Wii U or the 3DS because Nintendo of Australia turned off credit card support a couple of years ago. That's only just coming up soon for Europe. So you have to buy like eShop gift cards, or you have to link your Nintendo Switch account to your Wii U account to make sure they're the same profile, and then add funds for your Switch account, which is then visible on your eShop account. So there's a whole rigmarole there. But yeah, again, it's not that we're losing the shop, it's that we're losing the content behind the shop. And I personally own a lot of these games physically. And it's a big argument, you know, as the industry transitions more to a digital front. You know, digital games are sort of the preferred way of companies providing me with review code. You know, very early on, it was, oh, you know, we're sending you a copy of this new game we're releasing, and you know, 3 days later, it would turn up in the mail on a disc. Sometimes that disc was very blank with like text written on what it was. And now it's like, oh, we're going to give you a copy of our game to review. Here's the code, which is obviously very simple for them. They don't have to worry about printing up all these promotional, you know, review media outlet discs. So it's very simple for them. But at the same time, it's like, I've got on my Xbox, I've got some 360 games from my Xbox One, you know, sort of for years. If my Xbox account ever gets deleted for whatever reason, I've lost all that content. Whereas if I have the disc, I can pop it back in and I'm good to go. So yeah, again, it's not that we're losing the shop, it's that we're losing the content specifically. And that the whole we have no plans to offer it in any other way is what's really getting people, you know, angry. And again, it's Nintendo, they're their own business, they can make these decisions and, you know, either say, hey, no, we've made the decision, we're sticking to it, or they can do what PlayStation did and reverse the decision because of fan outrage. I don't know if Nintendo will do that because, again, it's Nintendo. They do everything their own way, and every time they make a decision like this, it's very rare for them to change their minds on it. So whether or not they stick with it, we have to wait and see. But for now, it means if you want to get some eShop goodness from your Wii U or your 3DS, you know, you've got to get in. You've got 12 months to get in and buy the content that really matters to you. It's not go out and buy everything from the shops, because that would be expensive. But it's you know, look for the content that really matters. And yeah. So again, it is some sad news that they're doing this. It's again totally not unexpected because nobody's on those platforms at the moment. No, they're not selling them. Nintendo hasn't technically sold any 3DS platforms, 3DS units in 15 months. They've not reported any sales increases in the numbers there. So at this point, we have to wait and see. But that brings us to the end of another episode. So we are the Maxi-Geek Show. We are live every Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is 7 p.m. Melbourne or Sydney time. We will be back next Friday for another installment. Who knows what news awaits us then? If you are interested, we are also doing the James Bond series where we're playing through all the James Bond video games from consoles. We have completed our Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 lineup of titles, and then on Tuesday we'll be starting on the GameCube era. So we'll be playing Agent Under Fire as the first one because we were playing them through in release order, except we're ending on GoldenEye Remake on the Wii because we started with GoldenEye and it just seemed a bit more poetic to end on GoldenEye on the Wii. That being said, we are off for now. We'll be back on Tuesday for that one. So if you are planning on following us along there, we will be back at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time for the James Bond series. If you are looking to play something this weekend, enjoy, happy gaming, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.